Hi, friends. So, as I was laying in bed awake last night trying to find things to worry about, it occurred to me that by the time my day one speakers come to give their round two speech, because of the way our class is set up, it will have been a whole week since we have talked about round two requirements. And for my day two speakers, almost 2 weeks. So, since I was worrying about that, I decided that I would just go ahead and make this video for you guys. Hopefully it'll be a quick one. What I'm gonna do is just go over the grading rubric that I'm gonna use for your round two speeches. There shouldn't be any new information that you hear in this video, nothing that we haven't covered in class or talked about. I just wanted to give you a little bit of explanation, a little bit of summary, a little bit of review over the things that I'm looking for in your round two speech. So we will go ahead and cut over real quick to the rubric. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through it pretty quickly. So first things first, the first new thing we have this round is that your attention getter should be a story. Like we talked about in class on Monday, a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It doesn't have to be a long story at all. 20, 30 seconds maybe. A few sentences would be just fine. But your intro, your attention getter needs to include a story. After you get done with that, you will move on to benefits to the audience. And what I mean by this is giving your audience the so what. Like, why should we learn this thing that you're trying to teach us? How might we benefit from it? This is a great place to incorporate some audience adaptation. Think about the needs and the values and the priorities of your audience members in particular. Next, we get to our thesis, which is pretty much the same as round one. No new information there. Essentially just, today I'm going to teach you how to blank. Finally, we get to the preview of steps. What I'm looking for here is for you to have broken down your demonstration into 3 to 5 pretty simple steps. Simple as in, you're able to explain them concisely and simply. So what you're going to do is you're going to have them written on the board behind you, and I'll show you where that is in the rubric in just a minute, but you are going to run us through those really quickly. So, for example, I might say, my thesis statement would be, today I'm going to teach you how to shoot a free throw. You can do this in 4 easy steps. First of all, you align your feet. Second, you position your hand on the ball. Third, you extend your arms. And fourth, and finally, you follow through. So I'm also looking for signposts here. Words like next, then, finally, second, third. As long as you walk us through that, and you're sort of escorting your audience through this content or through this list of things that you're talking about. So I'll be looking for signposts in that introduction. So moving on to the body of your speech. Again, same thing. I'm looking for transitions, signposts. So tell me where we've been and tell me where we're going. So for example, now that we have our feet aligned, next we move on to our hand positioning on the ball. Tell us where we've been, tell us where we're going. You should have transitions between each one of those steps. As you move from one thing to another, I want to hear that transition. Steps clearly outlined and defined. That is pretty self-explanatory. As long as you're able to give us clear, detailed steps that walk us through this process, you'll get the full 10 points on that. Remember, you need to include your audience in your demonstration. What I'm looking for there is including at least some of your audience members, all of your audience members if you can, and clearly instruct us as to like when to engage or when to stop and be seated. Which steps should we be doing with you? We don't need to do the entire speech with you, but make sure you're clear, like, okay, this part you're doing with me, that was great, y'all can sit down. I also want to see you checking in with your audience members. Look around, see how they're doing. If there's some kind of confusion, that's when you adapt to your audience. You might back up and re-explain something briefly. Adapting to audiences' knowledge, needs, and values. Remember, adapting content to our audience is one of the main things that we are working on this round. So what I'm looking for here is including tips and tricks, things like that, comparisons to make the unfamiliar more familiar. If you find when you're practicing this speech that you're hitting somewhere around the 4-minute mark, remember we're aiming for 5 to 6. If you end up hitting about the 4-minute mark, this is probably where you're lacking content. This knowledge, needs, and values adaptation to your audience. So think about your peers, think about what they need, and include as many little tips and tricks as you can to help them have enough knowledge to be able to do this demonstration with you. And again, comparisons and metaphors are a great way to do that. One of the examples we talked about in class was hold your right hand over your right shoulder as if you are a pizza delivery man carrying a pizza. Great comparison. So, specific language throughout your speech. What I'm looking for here is almost the same as what I was looking for in round 1. Specific and descriptive language that really adds clarity and interest to what it is you're explaining. So for example, something that would not be good to say in your speech is, so you take this side and put it over here. Instead, say, take the left side of your paper and fold it towards the middle of the paper. Then take the right side and fold it towards the middle. Something like that. So be specific and detailed and clear in what it is that you're telling us to do. You can think back to the peanut butter and jelly thing that we did in class. Instead of telling me put peanut butter on the bread, tell me how much. Tell me to spread it evenly so that it covers every inch of the slice of bread. So that covers the body of your speech. We'll move on to the conclusion. Just like last round, I'm looking for a signal of conclusion. Something like, in conclusion, to wrap up, to finish us off, something like that. Then you are going to review your steps in order using signposts. So the same thing you did in your introduction, you're going to do it again in your conclusion. Remember that we are writing for the ear and not the eye, so repetition is fantastic, especially when you have things like a series of steps. So, same thing that you said in your intro, you'll include in your conclusion. First, we're going to set our feet. Next, we're going to get our hands positioned correctly on the ball. We are going to extend our arms, and finally our follow through, things like that. Final thought was memorable, same thing as round 1. I'm looking for something that is succinct, maybe evokes a clear emotion or offers a clear takeaway, and I want it to be the last sentence that you say to us. All right, let's talk visual aids. So, steps visual aid. What do I mean by this? This is the steps that you have written on the board behind you. So what I'm looking for is that they're worded concisely, that they're worded logically, that your handwriting is legible. If you need some help with that, you can pull up a friend to write your steps for you. I've also had students bring in like a poster board with their steps pre-written because they were worried about writing on the chalkboard. Totally up to you, not required. But you'll have those steps written behind you, 3 to 5 steps worded concisely and worded logically. 3D objects are appropriate. What I'm looking for here is that each item that you use in your demonstration enhances your demonstration, doesn't detract from the clarity of the process, and all the materials that you need to do it are there within reason. I know I've talked to some of you about how you can't bring a particular object to include in your demonstration. If that's the case, and I've already talked to you, you're good. If you're worried that you won't be able to bring everything, let's talk about it. See if we can talk about an alternative or find a way to make it work. But generally, everything you need to do your demonstration should be with you. Also, like I said, the materials and the 3D objects you're working with should not detract your audience's attention from what you're trying to say. If you are teaching us something that has to do with sports and you have a ball, for example, make sure you're not tossing it back and forth between your hands as you are talking to us. So let's move on to delivery. I'm looking for use of body and space a good amount this round. Make use of that space that we have in front of the classroom. I'm also looking for you to position yourself at appropriate points in the room in order to kind of maximize the visibility to your audience, especially if you're working with something small. You might need to get a little bit closer to your audience and walk from one side to the other, showing them what it is that you're doing. Working easily with visual aids. For that, I am essentially just making sure that you are holding your visual aids in positions where it's visible to everyone in the room, like we practiced towards the end of class on Monday, holding it away from your body and above your waist, so not holding it right here, really small. Hold it out, and again, feel free to make use of all of that room that we have in the front of our classroom. So showing them with ease, having smooth kind of gestures and movements, holding them in positions where they're visible to everyone. That's what I'm looking for when I say work easily with visual aids. For showing instead of telling, what I'm looking for here is just you to physically do the things that you're telling us to do. Don't sit there and lecture at us without anything to show with it. As long as you do the steps that you are explaining to us, you're good to go. For eye contact, pretty self-explanatory. What I'm looking for is you to distribute it pretty evenly around the room and not focusing on the materials or the objects that you're working with. Don't speak to those objects, speak to your audience. And again, make sure that if there are points where you need to look away, maybe turn to the side, make sure that you minimize that as much as possible, or at the very least, minimize how much you're saying when you're not facing your audience. All right, let's talk diction. So we didn't spend a ton of time on this in class. A big reason we didn't do that is because you will be practicing this for your practice video, which is due at 10 p.m. the night before your speech. I'll tell you more about how to upload that in just a minute. For diction, the things that I'm looking for in particular are ends of words and rounded vowels. So as far as ends of words go, think of it this way. I want to hear the last letter in the words that you are saying. I'll show you kind of the difference between those. It's the difference between N of word and end of word. N of word, end of word. You can hear the D at the end. So especially if there's a word that you're going to be saying a lot during your speech, make sure that you're really enunciating that, not dropping off the ends of those words. You are better able to enunciate and follow through with those words when you speak a little bit slower. If you tend to be a fast talker like me, we drop the ends of our words because we're in such a rush to get everything out because we're just so excited to talk. So slow down, make sure you're enunciating clearly. When I say rounded vowels, essentially what I mean is you need to open your mouth quite a bit as you're talking. Rounded vowels means you are not mumbling, you are not talking like this. Your mouth should move quite a bit when you're talking. So really opening your mouth, rounding out your vowels helps a lot with diction. Go to our video library on our Moodle page. There's a tab that says video library. If you scroll down, there are a bunch of videos on diction. So I'm not going to be grading too terribly hard on diction because this is the first time that I'm grading on it, and we didn't spend a ton of time in class on it. I'd rather kind of see where everyone falls after this speech and see how much more time we need to dedicate to it. But I do want you to practice rounding out your vowels and making sure you don't drop those end sounds. For some of you on your delivery diagnostic, I also included plosives. So if I wrote that, then it's a good time to start practicing the p, d, t sounds, those hard consonants. Again, there's a video in the video library that explains all of that. So, diction, done. Vocal energy. I know some of us had trouble with that. It's hard to fake energy sometimes, but again, there are videos in the video library to help. One of the things that you can do is change your inflection and the tone of your voice. Maybe add in some strategic pauses. So this works really well. Vocal energy and extemporaneous tend to go sort of hand in hand. They're relatively related. Usually, if you're a good energetic speaker, you're usually speaking pretty extemporaneously. So that means having more voice inflection, making it conversational, and coming across like you are sort of enjoying what you're doing. At the very least, that you're not miserable doing what you are doing. Volume, pretty self-explanatory, same as last round. Just make sure that even through your mask, we can hear you at the back of the room. One thing to keep in mind with volume is that, again, if you're facing away from your audience at any point, try to minimize how much you say when your mouth isn't facing your audience, especially with the masks that we have on. It's just going to add another barrier to making that sound project towards the back of the room. For pacing, what I'm looking for is not talking too quickly and not talking too slowly. Again, if you are speaking too quickly, your diction is also probably going to suffer. So try to keep it at a nice, slow pace. Incorporate pauses to control your breathing, or dramatic pauses if you'd like. But make sure that you are keeping an eye on, or that you are aware of the pace that you have when you're speaking. Extemporaneous, same thing as last round. I'm looking for a conversational tone here, not reading off an outline, not sounding like it's memorized. So be cautious of practicing too much, especially if you've written out your whole speech. Of course, my first piece of advice is to never write out your entire speech word for word, but if you do, it's best to practice as little as possible with that. Really practice with your keyword outline. That will keep you from accidentally memorizing your speech word for word. That will make sure that you have that conversational tone during your speech. So again, check out the video library on Moodle. There are a whole bunch of really helpful videos there. So before I leave you, I want to talk really quickly about how you're going to turn in your practice video. Remember, 10 p.m. the night before your speech. Okay, so in Moodle, it's in the week 5 tab, round 2 practice video upload. Now here's the thing. You're not attaching a file to this. Instead, we use Illinois Media Space. So your video will need to exist on this site called Illinois Media Space, and then you add it to Moodle. So I'll show you how to do that if you've never done it before, which I'm assuming we're starting from fresh. So I'm going to show you the steps that you need to go through the first time you do this. So you'll go to Illinois Media Space. It's mediaspace.illinois.edu. You can also just Google Illinois Media Space. Make sure that you are logged in. Oh, sorry about that. So go to mediaspace.illinois.edu. Make sure that you are logged in here on the right-hand side. And then you will click on Add New, and you'll see a whole bunch of options. If you don't see all these options, it's because you're not logged in. You get more options when you log in. So here are kind of your 2 options. I think that your easiest options. Number 1, if you have a program that you like to use to record videos already, or you'd really prefer to do it on your phone instead of your computer, then in that case, you'll save it as a file and then select Media Upload. If you don't have a program that you normally use for videos, for recording and things like that, you can record your speech right here in your browser in Illinois Media Space. You just click on Express Capture, and it's not going to work for me because I have my camera going in another program to record this, but you saw just a second ago that black box popped up with the red record button in the middle. Usually your camera will pop on. You'll see yourself, your microphone will be on, easy peasy, hit that record button, and it's automatically added to your Illinois Media Space library. So once you get it all saved in Illinois Media Space, then you can go back to Moodle. You'll select Add Media Submission. At this point, since you've already logged in, it should bring up your library of all the videos you have saved in Illinois Media Space. Then you'll just scroll through, you'll select the one that you want to upload. Once you've done this before, you've already logged in on that Media Space site. So like for rounds 3 and 4 and 5, when you have to upload practice videos, you can do it from here. You can say add new and do it from Moodle. But for the first time, it's easiest to just go to Illinois Media Space and log in there so that all the sites are talking to each other and everything works smoothly. So if you have questions or trouble with that, send me an email and let me know. Worst case scenario, if you can't figure out how to get Illinois Media Space to work, you can email me your video. You can email me the link to like a Google Drive or wherever it is that you keep that file online if it's too big to email. But I do want those in at 10 p.m. the night before your speech. So maybe try for a little bit earlier in case you have technical difficulties. So that covers just about everything that I wanted to talk to all of you about. I'll show you the video library really quick since we're here. Besides those diction videos, something you might find useful, we have 2 round 2 sample speeches available. Cake batter cookies is the speech that we watched during class, but there's also a second speech, tennis forehand. If you learn best through examples, definitely go watch that speech or even rewatch the one that we watched in class. So here are your diction videos. There's also some energy videos. If you have trouble with particular sounds, the pronunciation videos are fantastic. You will need to watch the end sounds and the tongue twisters to die for videos before you record that practice video. Your goal in this practice video, it says right here, be sure to over-enunciate your words as instructed by the videos. Like your mouth should be tired by the time you get done doing this video. You should be over-enunciating. It's gonna feel ridiculous. It's gonna look a little silly. That's the point. So that you feel what it's like to have your mouth moving that much. Of course, when you come to class to give your speech, it'll tone down, but your brain, you'll have that muscle memory. Those neural pathways will have made a link. It'll help, I promise. There's a method to our madness. I promise there is. So if you have any questions at all, please get in contact with me. My schedule is pretty flexible this week. I am more than happy to find a time to meet with you. If you think that maybe you don't have enough tips and tricks, or you're confused about how to adapt your content to your audience, or you are afraid your speech isn't going to be any longer than like 4 minutes. These are all things that I would love to help you with. So don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Again, schedule super flexible. Just shoot me an email for a meeting. I'm even willing to meet with you guys on Sunday because I know how procrastination goes. When I was a student, I would have waited until Saturday to start on my speech as well. Don't be like me. Be better. So hopefully you'll get started early. If you would like to meet with me, shoot me an email, maybe a day ahead of time, ask me for my availability, and we will find a time to meet. I am so excited to see y'all's demonstration speeches. The topic proposals are awesome. We have an insanely wide range of stuff that we're going to see. I'm very excited. So, best of luck. Y'all are brilliant. You're going to do great.